Ed Space, in which we discuss some of the highlights of the week's news with our editor, Sukumar. Welcome to the show, Sukumar. Sukumar, let's start with the GDP figures for the quarter ending in June, which were announced this morning. 5.5% was slightly higher than some people had expected, but it doesn't seem to have dispelled any of the gloom about the economy. First of all, do you think these figures are reliable? And secondly, what does it tell us about the future?
I think in India, most analysts and most people who are watching economic data are very, very suspicious of any data that's released by the government. And part of it is due to the fact that the government itself revises this data. For instance, it recently revised economic growth data for 2009-10 very, very significantly, and 10-11, a few quarters at least a little bit. So there is no sanctity to this data. And that said, I think the government has also not addressed many of the issues which have in turn contributed to a slowing of economic growth. So people are taking this 5.5% number with a pinch of salt.
Moving on to the news this morning that the Sahara Group has been ordered by the Supreme Court to repay more than $3 billion to millions of small investors, plus 15% interest. What do you think that repayment will mean for Sahara? And also, what was exactly the problem with the way that they raised this money?
The issue in this case was actually a very simple one. You know, most of these cases which land up in the Supreme Court, when you distill them down to their simplest form, the real issue is actually very, very simple. In this case, the issue was what constitutes a public issue, what constitutes raising money from the public. And the Securities and Exchange Board of India is very, very clear on this. If you go out and raise money from more than 49 people, it is a public issue. In this case, Sahara went out and raised money from definitely more than 49 people, as the court order reveals. As a result, it wasn't a public issue, and SEBI acted on the assumption that it wasn't a public issue and passed some orders against the company. The company appealed these orders, claiming that it was, in reality, not a public issue. So the real issue was actually a very, very simple one. But I think the impact of this is very significant, because if the court had ruled in favor of Sahara, I think it would have meant a significant change in securities law itself and how those laws are interpreted. Now, as far as what the impact on Sahara will be, this is a large group, and no one really knows the size of this group. No one really knows the extent of its land holdings. No one really knows the quantum of their assets. But the fact is, they raised a large amount of, a significant amount of money from the public, and now they have to pay it back with interest. And the court has appointed an observer to make sure that this amount is paid back. So it's definitely a setback for them from that perspective.
And just let's go to Unmukt Chand, who's the captain of India's Under-19 World Cup cricket team. This week he's been barred by St Stephen's College, where he studies, from attending his next year because of his poor attendance record. Now, a lot of people have suggested that a public outcry might create some kind of pressure on Stephen's College to maybe bend the rules a bit for him, given that he's a public figure. What's the danger of this? And do you think that it reveals anything about the way India is liable to bend the rules sometimes for people who are in the public eye?
Not sometimes. We bend the rules all the time for anyone who's in the public eye. And I think our system is a system of governance by exception, of governance by exemption. And these exemptions and exceptions start early. You know, people are treated differently simply because of who they are. They could be a politician. Some journalists are treated differently. And some people are treated differently for what they've achieved. Because in this country, if you achieve anything, irrespective of whether it results in material gain for yourself or not, it is considered a huge national achievement. You know, we love making heroes of people. And the fact is, in this case, Unmukt Chand's achievement is very, very significant. But I think his achievement is in one domain. It's in cricket. It doesn't change the fact that this college he goes to has its rules that he must have been well aware of, because he seems like a very, very intelligent, personable young man. So he knows what the rules, he probably knew what the rules were. These are rules that have been put in place by the university regarding minimum attendance that's required to sit in an examination. So rules are rules, and they apply to everyone. I think what's important is for the college not to change its position simply because a few ministers and everyone else believe that they need to be changed because this boy has done something and he's achieved something.
So whether or not he's a national hero, he should still be treated the same as any other student?
Because then where do you draw the line? Are you going to exempt him from taxes? If someone gives him an expensive car tomorrow, are you going to, outside the country, are you going to tell him that he doesn't need to pay taxes? And there was, of course, the famous incident of a cricketer who was gifted a Ferrari outside the country and he wanted to bring it back without paying duty. And it created a significant controversy. But the fact is, you cannot tell these people that they're special. They may be good at what they do, which is fine. And in some ways they're special, but they're not special in terms of exemptions from rules and laws.
One rule for everyone.
One rule for everyone. That's right.
Thanks very much, Sukumar, for those insights. On that note, we end today's episode. Thank you very much for watching, and please stay tuned for more.